Today we're gonna talk about thinking. You mentioned the word thinking twice already. You think about the book,
Thinking
second
and
book.
growing. I
Yes.
love how you called this thinking and growing.
Yeah, yeah. And my wife and I, we've been asking people the secret of how they think, so that we can share that with our audience, and whoever listen to the conversation will pick the tips, the advices, so that they can reflect and learn and apply. And I think that is the beginning of all of the beautiful change if they know how to do it well. All right. So. Um, so, Michelle, let's start our conversation simply by I'll ask you the basic first. So, what is thinking? What's the definition of thinking in Michelle's version?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've been advocating all of the leaders that I coach is I want them to rethink and reimagine how we work, how we connect, how we prioritize, how we meet. This is a whole new era, and it is time to rethink how we conduct business. So when I think of the word think, what comes to me is I want to not overanalyze things, and I really want to look with a new lens. I want to disrupt. I want to create. I want to innovate. To me, those are all ways that we can rethink how we want to show up in this world as the best version of ourselves.
Thanks for sharing that. So, innovate, disrupt, rethink of how we show up into this world, right? And then there's a lot of things that hold us back from better thinking. So I think it's for us to think better, then we need to also know what weighing us down, right? So that we can eliminate them. In your experience working for your and with amazing people out there, what seems to be the obstacles for them to become better thinkers?
Well, I think for years we've had some bad habits, and I think that a lot of leaders were trained from the command and control perspective to lead with power, lead with control, and inadvertently, because I don't think they did it intentionally, what happened was they created cultures of fear.
Mm,
And you're not going to get the best thinking, the best ideas, the best innovations when you have a culture of fear. People are
mm,
scared to raise their hand. They're scared that their question might come across as stupid. They're scared, right? And
mm,
so, whenever you have somebody who's fearful of taking a risk, then you don't have innovation. So, what I'm advocating is let's create cultures of connection,
mm,
because I believe through my research that if we create true cultures of connection in our organizations, if we get rid of the jerk bosses, if we allow people, enable people, encourage people to show up as their full
mm,
selves and bring their full human selves to the organization, right? Then we're going to have the best thinking. If
mm,
we have people who aren't scared to make mistakes, who aren't scared to ask what might be a stupid question, who aren't scared to fall down and stumble, then we're going to have the best thinking. So that's where I'm really moving in 2023 is my mission is to create and to help leaders create cultures of connection.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think that that connection is something that been lacking over the years for some reason. When we were young, we used to be really playful, connecting with a lot of others, right? And then growing up as adult, and then eventually something happened in between that's stopping us from being truly authentic and truly care for one another like when we were young. So what happened to us back then though during the grow up stage?
Yeah, you are so right. And those are great questions. And I really tried to get to the bottom of it in my first book, The Seismic Shift of Leadership, when I interviewed 18 leaders from around the world. And I wanted to know about connection, but I also wanted to know about disconnection. And we did become disconnected. And so many of the leaders that I interviewed mentioned how they were trained to just bring your professional self to the office, you
Mm.
know, and they were trained. I'll give you an example. I coach a chief of information services for a big company. And we were coming out of the pandemic. I said, what is something that you can do to really connect with your people who you haven't seen in person in 2 years? And he said, I would love to have a cookout. He goes, we just bought a new house on the water. I'd love to have a cookout with my people. I said, that's brilliant. He said, but my former boss at my former company told me that no, that was too personal. You don't invite people over to your house for a cookout. So
Oh.
you're right. Something along the way in the 90s, the 2000s taught us that we were just supposed to bring one half of ourselves to work and kind of hide the other half. So you were only bringing half of yourself. And so even to this day, when I am on coaching calls and I'll say, okay, let's look at the engagement scores, what is an area that you want to improve in? And they said, well, it comes up, kind of want to be better connecting with my team. I said, okay, so let's deconstruct connection. And to me, connection is, do your people feel seen, heard, valued, and appreciated? Then they feel connected. So I said, what are you doing in these meetings where your people feel seen, heard, valued, appreciated, respected? I said, are you asking them about their personal lives? No, 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 no. I don't want to do that. I can't go there. We have a lot to accomplish. We have 1 hour and we have an agenda. I said, okay, but if you're going to drive 30% increase in revenue, you got to start by knowing your people and building a team where they not only trust you, but they trust each other. They feel safe. They feel comfortable. You create this culture of connection rather than culture of fear. I said, and what I've learned, the only way you can really do that is by asking them about themselves, learning about them, caring about them as full humans, not just what percent of revenue did they increase in their division last quarter.
Mm.
That's not going to get you what you want. So that's the seismic shift I'm referring to. You're right. Somewhere along the way, and I fell victim to this too, we were taught that it just has to be kind of command and control, and you give orders and it's transactional and you communicate to get from point A to point B. And now it has got to be about meaningful connection.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks. And you know what, Michelle, I always believe in good things also. So I believe that if we have the intention to change, then we can always change. And and then if I believe those leaders will be able to restore the connections for the teams, the organization, and that is foundation for us to make change in the world. So thanks for leading that. Uh, and I hope that your new book gonna come in soon, so that it's gonna be a footprint for us to look, to read, and to think, to apply. All right.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's where really I want to go next. That first book that I wrote, The Seismic Shift in Leadership, How to Thrive in This New Era of Connection. It really, the second title should be really How to Thrive in a New Era of Disconnection, because that's what I'm finding more and more. People saying, we haven't seen each other in 2 years. And now people are saying they still don't want to go back to the office. And I don't really know, how in the world am I supposed to run a meeting? I was on a meeting recently where it was for 4 hours. And the people running the meeting didn't even give us a bio break. 4 hours in a virtual meeting without a bio break, and they just spoke at us. There were no visuals. There were no breakout groups. There was no way for smaller groups to have any sort of connection. We just sat there and we were spoken to for 4 hours. And those are the examples that I'm talking about when you talked about what does thinking mean to you. And I challenged you and said, well, I think everyone should be rethinking how we work and how we meet. And we can't just think that now, because our employees want to stay flexible and they want to still work either all from home or occasionally from home, we can't just run meetings in this transactional way, one way, talking to. You're going to lose people. You're not going to motivate them. So this new book that I want to start writing, this seismic shift in culture, I want it to be a workbook because so much of my work now is spreading the message that, okay, we've identified there's a seismic shift. Command and control no longer works. It's not effective. We have higher expectations of how we want to be treated at work. We're not going to put up with jerk bosses. So
Mm,
rather than creating cultures of fear, we need to create cultures of connection. But then how do you do that? It's easy to say that, oh, yes, yes, we do. We need to create cultures of connection. What does that look like? What does that feel like? What does that sound like? What do I do? And
mm.
that's the book that I want to write, is a roadmap, kind of a toolkit, kind of a workbook to say, here's how you do it.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And Michelle, I'm gonna change the word thinking to the word rethinking forward. Okay, with in the conversation, you've been meeting a lot of great people, great leaders. So how what did they do really different from others so that that they have the good rethinking process and keep rolling over and over within themselves? Can you share?
Yeah, so and I love collecting data and stories and all of the leaders. I had a great coaching session today with the CEO of a hospital, and at the end of the year, I created a connection assessment for my leaders so that they could ask their direct reports, how am I doing? You
Ah,
know, do you feel seen, heard, valued, appreciated? How can I better connect with you? And so I've been reviewing all of the data, and it really is what I keep coming back to, and I don't have all the answers, but I've got some good questions of how do we rethink the way we show up? How do we
ah,
rethink the way we own our calendars? How do we rethink the way we meet? So we now know what doesn't work is doing, being spoken to on a Zoom call for 4 hours. That doesn't work, right? So what we're hearing from people is, rather than having a formal meeting every 2 weeks with all of us where we go to the conference room, if you even have the opportunity to meet in person, we show up in the conference room and we all, represent our divisions and we give updates. Well, maybe there's a better way to do that. Maybe it's a little bit less formal, a little bit more like, let's have twice a week, let's have a huddle over coffee, standing up. And let's just go around and give us updates and tell us as a team what we can do to support you. What do
mm,
you need? How can we support you? What do you have going on? Give us updates, and how can we remove the barriers for you? So I'm seeing that things are just becoming less formal, but
mm.
again, you have to reimagine and rethink. I'll give you another example. So one-on-one meetings keep coming up as a way to truly connect with your people. So a lot of my CEOs, the feedback they received at the end of the year through this connection assessment was, I want more one-on-ones. I'd like more time with you. Well, you can imagine looking at a CEO's calendar. It's pretty jam-packed. It's really hard to find time because they're supposed to organically round the hospital, to touch in with the frontline people, and they spend most of their time as CEOs in meetings. They don't even have time embedded to do the work that's necessary, right? So think about a CEO's operating rhythm, their calendar. And now they hear at the end of the year, bravo, you've done an incredible job connecting with me, but man, I sure would like some more time with you. So that was the big discussion today. How do you create more time? Well, it's all about rethinking and reimagining. So rather than these more formal 1 hour meetings where everybody gives updates, let's have more frequent, less formal ways to connect. And that's what I'm seeing, is really we've got to look at our calendars and figure out how can we find time in a deliberate, intentional way to connect with the key stakeholders we need to connect with in a little bit more informal, frequent time, where maybe it's just a huddle, maybe it's just a phone call. So one of my leaders, when she thought about this, she said, you know what, Michelle? She goes, here I tell all of my direct reports that those one-on-one meetings are for them. It's all about them. Yet I'm the one that I pick when I'm going to meet with them, where I'm going to meet with them, how long I'm going to meet with them, and how often. She said, it just occurred to me. So she said, at the end of the year, I sent out an email to all my direct reports and said, I just had this big revelation. I want you to tell me what works best for you. How would you like to connect with me? Do you want to meet for coffee? Do you want to only talk on the telephone once a month? Do you want to do it Zoom? Tell me what you need. And she said each of her direct reports had a different request. One was an extreme extrovert who has been home with her husband and two kids for 2 years and is ready to, meet people again in person. She's like, please meet me at a coffee shop. I just want to see you, because at this point they still weren't going back into the office. Another one said, look, you're a great boss, but I don't need to have a one-on-one sit down with you twice a month. Can we just talk on the telephone for 30 minutes at the end of the month? So everybody ended up having a different request. And I think that's what Leadership Connection is about right now, is figuring out what your people need to best connect and get the results that you're going for.
Beautiful, beautiful. The example that you just shared happened to every CEOs, and she was the one that really made the change to her leadership team by letting them to decide when they want to meet and what in what way they want to meet with her, right? So it's amazing. And I love to share that story. Thanks a lot for doing that, because that's really tell us to rethink about how we been thinking and doing, right? And that is a prime example of that. We go to the last question for this conversation today, which is the biggest question also, Michelle. And it's about you. All right. You are one of among the best thinker in the world. All right. And we wanna understand the secrets of your thinking. So how have you been helping you to improve your ability to think over the years?
Oh, that's such a great question. Well, first of all, thank you. I'm humbled. Thank you so much for your compliment. I'm very fortunate to be a part of 100 Coaches. And one of the things that that organization did for me personally, that helped me think, rethink, and grow as a leader, as a coach, just as a human, is we embedded time for meaningful community and connection with each other. So on Mondays, we get together just for 1 hour all over the world. We Zoom in with our leader, Marshall Goldsmith, and he picks a topic to talk about, and he talks about in the very beginning. Then we go into breakout groups, and we collaborate and share ideas. And that has such a profound impact on me that I now try to put together community groups where I am in New Orleans. So I'll give you an example. I had people over, I had moms over at my house for coffee before Christmas. And one of the things that we were struggling, all of us were, we were struggling, we were all brand new empty nesters. And our kids had just started college. And so they had just come home from college, and we were just thrilled to see them. And yet we had been silently suffering, that all of us had been really struggling with that loss of that identity of, oh my gosh, what, I can't, am I not a mom anymore? I don't have a kid to parent. They're off at college. And it's this whole rethinking of your role, in the world and your purpose. And yet a lot of us were suffering alone and silently. And so when we all came together, and it just was such a relief to say, oh my gosh, you feel like that too. Wait, I didn't think you felt like that. And then we agreed, we made a commitment. We're going to get together and we're going to form a little community of moms who just became empty nesters so we can support one another. And I'm trying to do more and more. I've put together a group of women supporting women in business. Because what I have found is that we do need connection. And for some reason, and of course we know why, just coming out of the pandemic, we're just not embedding as much time as we used to for true connection with others. But when you say, I am going to build this community of like-minded people, like 100 coaches that I get to, every Monday morning, I get to have a really stimulating conversation about a topic that's applicable to my world, and we brainstorm, that is brilliant for my thinking and my rethinking and my innovation, right? I just think we need to bring people together who are facing similar issues. I think we need more community, and I think we need more connection. But we've got to do it, right? We've got to take the step and initiate, because there are so many people silently suffering, thinking that they're alone, and we need to bring people together.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks a lot for doing that. And you guys are amazing. Really admire all the works that you guys doing from this part of the world. So thanks a lot for doing that. Please keep sharing a lot more with us so that we can learn from you and the group been doing. Okay.
Oh, thank you so much. And I can't wait to read your book. It's what a beautiful project for you and your wife to come together and A, to have a podcast, to B, ask guests on and ask really good questions, and then C, to compile it together so that we all can learn from each other. Thank you for putting that out in the world.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Have a wonderful evening and say hello to your loved ones first, please.
I will. You too. Take care. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks to all the listeners.